كما ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر الروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربي أنطقني بالهدى والحمني بالتقوى. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. I begin in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is no doubt that it's due to His kindness and generosity. He provides for us opportunities such as these where we gather together in remembrance of Him tabaraka wa ta'ala. As the nights of Shahr Ramadhan come to an end, the Maghrib time gets earlier, the announcements get longer, and I'm left with like about 10 minutes to give you something, inshallah. I'll try my best. So we'll continue now with the story of Prophet Yusuf. The story of Prophet Yusuf, the stage that we have reached to now, is where they went to Egypt, the drought has started, they've gone to Egypt, Misr, and they've purchased goods to come back. But Yusuf, who has still not revealed his identity to his brothers, said that I will not give you further provisions unless you bring your brother Benjamin to me as well, to prove to me that somebody exists who you claimed existed. So they went back home, they were worried, they tried many different avenues. They finally ended up convincing their father, Yaqub alayhi salam, Jacob, to allow their other brother, Benjamin, to go with them so that they can procure some more food. Now, as the children began to leave Canaan, this is where they used to live, again to go back to Misr, this time with their youngest brother, Benjamin, alongside with them. Before they left, their father offered them a piece of advice, and he said, قَالَ يَا بَنِي لَا تَدْخُلُوا مِنْ بَابٍ وَاحِدٍ وَادْخُلُوا مِنْ أَبْوَابٍ مُتَفَرِّقَةٍ. He said, my sons, do not enter by one gate, but enter by separate gates. What that means is, I guess what it tells us is that Egypt or Misr, to enter into that city compounds, there were many doors to enter into that city. So he said, rather than all 11 of you entering from one door, I want you to split up and enter into separate doors. However, this was nothing but mere advice that was coming from Yaqub. This was not a prophecy, it was just a gut feeling that he had that said, look, I want you to enter in this way. And he fully acknowledges this in the next, in the continuation of that verse, where he says, though I cannot avail you anything against Allah, meaning that, look, I want you to enter separate doors, but if Allah has a plan, that plan will happen no matter what I decide to tell you. Right? So this entering through separate doors is nothing but merely a wish of Yaqub, though he very beautifully acknowledges that if God has a plan, that plan will happen and my plan will go away. I think there's a very beautiful lesson in this where we see the trust of Yaqub towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Oftentimes we plan, but we do not at least acknowledge the fact that if God has a better plan, that's what will happen. And this is what Yaqub alayhi salam does here. He says, sovereignty belongs, إِنَّ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْهِ تَوَكَّلْتُ وَعَلَيْهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلِ الْمُتَوَكِّلُونَ. There's an interesting question here that comes up, is that why did Yaqub alayhi salam advise his children in this manner? Right? Why did he tell him to walk through separate doors? Again, he's already said that this is merely a nasiha that I am giving. It is merely advice that I am giving. But when compared to what God has in plan, nothing can change God's plan. So the question is then, why did Yaqub advise his children in this manner? And the Mufassirun give about 2 or 3 explanations of possible reasons why Yaqub advised his children to walk through separate doors. The first reason is that all 11 of Yaqub's children, including Yusuf, we can see that Yusuf was young, beautiful, handsome. Likewise, the rest of the children were beautiful and handsome as well. And Yaqub alayhi salam felt that if 11 handsome, strong, beautiful children of his, boys, men, walked in together, they might be the victims of negative eyes of people. Yeah, najar as we call it, right? That nazar, or how you say it in Arabic, is that people might give them an evil eye. That 11 people. And here we see the validity of the evil eye from an Islamic point of view. This is not a made up phenomenon that we believe there is this concept of an evil eye. The evil eye exists. And it can cause a lot of negative repercussions in people's lives. This is why, for example, in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam says, ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, Al-Ainu haq wal-Raqa haq. Al-Ain, yani an evil eye, is the truth. Yeah, you can't deny that it's not the truth. The Ain is haq, and protection from the evil eye is haq as well. Hence, we need to take protections from the evil eye, whether it be Ayatul Kursi, or people may wear a taweez or something. But there is this concept of evil eye, and sometimes the evil eye or najar or nazar, as it is said, is not necessarily evil, right? One of the first things to affect one's children is called what? Mithi najar, isn't it? That you give them so much positive affection and love that this in itself has a negative connotation. A sweet love, not necessarily an evil love or a happy eye that's constantly given to your child. So here is something that we need to pay attention to in Islam. So this is something that Yaqub is kind of advising his children and saying, look, I'm afraid that you will be caught by an evil eye by the people, hence I want you to walk through separate doors. Another reason why is that because Misr was going through a drought as well, and if the people saw 11 strong men walking together towards the castle, they might in their minds feel that some type of coup is taking place. Some type of overthrow of the government is planned so that they could heap the merchandise for themselves. So in defense of that, Yaqub said, walk through separate doors, it is better. The last ta'wili, though there is no real proof of this, but the ta'wili, or a different type of interpretation that is given, was that the father was merely trying to teach his sons a lesson that sometimes in life you may have to take many roads to find success. Yani there's not just one path towards success. And here they were trying to acquire food, he was at least still trying to get his son Yusuf back. So he was saying, look, there's not an easy path in life. Sometimes you may have to take many different paths in life to get the decision or the natija, the conclusion that you want. So the brother left Canaan together, and as they approached Misr, then they broke up into smaller groups. And Allah describes this in the Quran when He says, when they entered whence their father had bidden them, it did not avail them against anything. It did not avail them anything against Allah. Yani they did what their father wanted, but this following the orders of their father did not avail them in front of Allah. And if Allah had a plan, that plan would have happened, even though they decided to follow the orders of their father. Then again, the question is, why did they do it? Right? If it was not going to hamper the plan of God, why did they follow this order? And Allah explains it very beautifully. He says, but only to fulfill a wish in Yaqub's heart. Yeah, so we see that the children followed the orders of their father only because their father wished them to do so. Right? There was no other reason. They knew that if God had another plan, that plan would have happened. But because their father asked them, they did it. And again, it shows us that, and from the very beginning we've been saying that they were not evil people. Yeah, they were not bad people. Even though they did what they did, it was an outcome of jealousy that had clouded their vision. But they were not evil throughout. Then the verse concludes with a praise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to Prophet Yaqub. He says, وَإِنَّهُ لَذُو عِلْمٍ لِمَا عَلِّمْنَاهُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Indeed, he had the knowledge, he as in Yaqub, had the knowledge of what we had taught him, but most people do not know. This is a very high praise that Allah gives to Prophet Yaqub, in that he was saying that, look, Yaqub has that knowledge and uses that knowledge of fully understanding that God is in control. Allah is trying to describe here that sometimes things happen in this life which are based on a cause and effect system, right? So sometimes when people do not think about things properly, they chase the causes of the effect rather than chasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, rather than submitting to God, right? So an example would be, if I know that if I take 2 Tylenol, my headache will go away. So I chase that and put my trust in that Tylenol rather than putting my trust in the one who put shafa'ah into that Tylenol. Yeah? Rather than putting my trust in God who has put the healing power in Tylenol, I go after Tylenol. But Yaqub was smarter than that. Hence Allah gives him a very beautiful compliment. He says that he had that knowledge of what we had taught him, and he always relied upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He never relied on any other means. And this is what we see the way Yaqub speaks. What time is Salat time? 53? 53, right? So we have about 7 minutes. Let's not waste precious time, yeah? Alright, so the next series of verses is now they have entered into the city separately. Once they enter the city separately, they of course come back together. So again, there's nothing major. It's very amazing why Allah used 2 verses to describe that incident, and it was the end result was that to fulfill a wish of Yaqub. This is all that the brothers did it for. So now they enter the city and they meet Yusuf again. They were clearly proud of themselves that they were able to bring their brother Benjamin along with them, and that they were convinced that they're father of this. Yusuf, on the other hand, was also very gracious with them, and he invited them for a meal, and they had dinner together. Now, what is very interesting is that there was 10 of them plus Benjamin, so that's 11, and Yusuf is 12, right? So these are all the brothers together. Yusuf, the way they had the seating done, Yusuf ordered plates of food to be put out, and then he requested that 2 sit at each plate and eat, right? Like a thali way of eating. So 2 brothers would sit, and the way it happened to unfold is that those 10 sat with themselves. So 2, and then Benjamin was left all by himself. Right? And Benjamin felt sad as well that, look, this is the way I've been treated my whole life. I've been an outcast. And again, we see that. So Yusuf takes this opportunity and he says it out loud to the rest of the brothers, since he is sitting by himself, I will join him. And again, this was the plan of Yusuf altogether. He wanted to be with his brother, that long lost brother whom shared the same mother with. And then during this time, Yusuf again did not reveal himself to his brother. After dinner, Yusuf then ordered that rooms be prepared for them and that they should sleep in these rooms. Again, each room could hold 2 people. Again, the same thing happened. 2 went by themselves and Benjamin was left all by himself. Now, I don't think this was an evil plot of theirs, right? Sometimes we do things on purpose, right? Here they say, for example, break up into 2. We'll find our closest friend and move on. This is what they did. They found their closest buddy, their brother, and moved on. Whom they never had a strong relationship with, Benjamin, was left alone. Likewise, this is what happened this time. They all went into their separate rooms. Benjamin was left by himself. This time, Yusuf invites him to his room and says, look, all the brothers are sleeping together. Why don't you come into my room and we can talk then. So here when they finally came into Yusuf's room, Yusuf began to speak to him, and Benjamin began to confess the troubles that he had gone through these past 20, 30 years, and the aggression that he had felt from his brothers. And he began to tell a very sad story about grief and loneliness, until Yusuf then could no longer control himself. This whole time Yusuf had been hiding that he is the brother of Benjamin, and a lot of these grief that Benjamin has been feeling is because Yusuf is not there, right? If Yusuf was there with Benjamin, these 2 would be together and there would not be a feeling of loneliness for themselves. So Yusuf finally confesses his secret. وَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَى يُوسُفَ آوَى إِلَيْهِ أَخَاهُ قَالَ إِنِّي أَنَا أَخُوكَ فَلَا تَبْتَئِسْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And when they entered into the presence of Joseph, he set his brother close to himself. So from the time they entered the presence of Joseph, all of these things happen. Where dinner is served and then the rooms are prepared. This is what's the beauty about the Quran. Look, God does not go into all of those things, right? He has said it like one sentence, but an entire day happened in that sentence. This is really the beauty of the Quran and why we really need to study the Quran in depth. He set his brother close to himself and said, indeed, I am your brother, so do not sorrow for what they used to do. We can imagine the joy that must have been felt by Benjamin, isn't it? That finally I have found you. I mean, my tone right now does not describe the happy occasion which is happening right now in Misr, where the brothers have finally joined together. They must be hugging, they must be embracing themselves. God knows what you would do if you found a long lost brother, right? So this is exactly what is happening. What is very interesting is what Yusuf is saying, that he says, do not sorrow for what they used to do. This is referring to the fact that how they used to treat Benjamin. Yeah, he said, do not be sorrow about how they used to treat you, about how they always used to leave you alone, how they always used to put you as an outcast. We have to remember, I don't know if this is here, we have to remember that from the very beginning, the jealousy that the brothers had towards Joseph or Yusuf was not only towards Yusuf, but it was towards Benjamin as well. The jealousy that they felt, because their father loved these two differently than they loved the rest. So even though they plotted against Yusuf, they had the same type of jealousy that was for Yusuf and for Benjamin. Hence, this feeling of loneliness was easy for them to do, to cast him aside. And remember that God said this in verse number 8 of this surah, when they said, surely Joseph and his brother are dearer to our father than the rest of us. So from the very beginning, they had this animosity that was faced towards them. Then in some traditions, it is mentioned that Yusuf asks Benjamin that, would you like to remain with me in Misr? Or do you want to go back to Canaan with your brothers? So Benjamin, of course, was excited at this opportunity of finally at least staying longer with his brother, getting to know him better, and to relive all of the years of how they missed one another and what they missed throughout these times. But he was really pragmatic, you can say, and realist, and said, look, they are not going to leave me here. Yeah, they have taken a solemn oath with my father, and because of what they did to you long time ago, they're not going to take any chances of making our father hurt, so they're not going to let me come. However, Yusuf assured his brother that he had a plan in mind that would guarantee that Benjamin would remain behind. Yeah, so he was absolutely sure that what he had in mind would force Benjamin to stay back, and then they could be together. And inshallah tomorrow we continue, if God gives us enough life, about what this plan was and how then it continues towards the end of the story. We're about on verse 69, 70. It goes from 70 to 100 is the story of Prophet Yusuf. 100 to 110, Allah is wrapping up the story with some advice for us. Inshallah we get through it. We pray to Allah to hasten the reappearance of our Imam. For those who are suffering, that He end their suffering. For those who are going through difficulty, that He ease their difficulty. For those who have asked us to remember them in our prayers, Ya Allah, please accept their hajat. رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.